So I've been crunching the numbers and it looks like our farm might be losing some money this year, and I'm gonna talk about it in today's video. And yeah, today's video is sponsored by my friends over at Skillshare. Good morning, little ones. How's it going, guys? So these are the last 6 goslings to be born on our farm this year. I got some fresh greens for you, little ones. There you go. You might be noticing that there is somewhat of a size disparity between these 2 sets of goslings. These guys are about 2 weeks old. These guys are about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days old, I think. You know, the conventional wisdom that I've always heard has been that you shouldn't mix goslings of different ages, but I've actually found that they've gotten along together pretty darn well. The little guys always have to wait their turn in terms of food. The big guys always get their pick of resources, whether it be the food or the grit or the water or even the heating plates. But generally speaking, they have coalesced into one healthy little flock. The reason this flock is so small right now is because I've sold off most of their brothers and sisters. You see, one of the things I've been doing lately with the last couple of batches of goslings I've had has been aggressively marketing and trying to sell the hatchlings, because I'm actually finding that the profitability that comes from just raising baby geese seems to be just a little bit better than when I'm raising the adult geese. You see, I've been selling most of the baby geese for about 30 bucks a pop. And as I'm selling those baby geese, that $30 doesn't take a ton of work on my part. Like when I think about when I'm selling a meat bird, right? You know, I'm usually buying them in bulk. When you include shipping, it's about $20 per bird. And then I'm spending about 5 months to raise it up. And then I'm taking the labor to butcher it and get it ready for sale. And that, quite honestly, is a whole heck of a lot of work for me to do as the farmer. Like if I look at the numbers right now, it looks like hatching eggs are the best business to be in, followed by live goslings, and then followed by meat birds. So kind of as I'm closely watching these numbers, all of this has me slightly evaluating my business model here on the farm when it comes to raising these birds.
And yeah, there's a decent chance that not all 6 of these goslings are going to even grow up on our farm. I might still end up selling a couple more. And by the way, for those who've been following previous videos and want to keep track, that big one in the middle, that's the gosling that got attacked by the mom when I was trying to sneak it underneath her. Good morning, Mr. Toby Dog. How's it going there, buddy boy? Good to see you, pal.
Come on, let's go green ticket.
Good morning, teenage geese. How's it going? You might notice the goslings are no longer inside the shed. They're now free-ranging full-time, just like the adult geese. You can see there, this is actually another group of geese that are mixed ages. You know, it's got some of them, like say that one right down there, who's about a week and a half younger than some of the older ones, like say that big white Emden looking guy right up in front. These geese are a mix of Emden and Pilgrim and Toulouse, and you can really see it in their coloring. You know, some of them look like they're just Emden geese. Some of them look like they're just Pilgrim geese. Some of them just look like Toulouse geese. Then you can actually see some of them, if they don't keep running away from me, they have these very interesting speckled patterns on their backs. Like whether it's like a white dominant speckle or a gray dominant speckle. I'm pretty excited about that. You know, some of those geese are gonna ultimately be harvested for meat, but a lot of them I actually wanna hang on to and have as future generations of breeders here on the farm. But one thing I have noticed with one of the geese is, you can see it right there, that little gray guy, he's got a slight case of angel wing. That shouldn't be happening with that goose. You know, these geese all have been getting the same diet, and you see nobody else has that problem. So that would suggest to me that that gosling right there is actually just more predisposed, genetically speaking, to getting angel wing. And so that's definitely going to be one of the ones that I try to process for meat later this year.
Breakfast for the Toby Dog. Here you go, pal. What's the matter? I know, you can't eat unless Pablo comes here.
Toby's such a sweet dog. He actually doesn't like to eat his food unless he's got some other animal with him. I don't know what that is. Must be some sort of pack instinct that he's got going there.
Which hopefully kind of continues when we get the puppy. Whenever we get the puppy. I'm still not sure when we're getting the puppy.
Oh, speaking of which, I notice I'm underway on a construction project here. I'm working to ensure that the geese never bother the guard dog house ever again. It's incomplete right now. I have to build a fourth wall to make sure that this works, which is weird because as a person who's constantly talking to you guys on video, I'm constantly breaking the fourth wall.
Fourth wall break inside a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls.
Good morning, chickens. Greet the day. So look at that. That is one night's of chicken turd. And I'm not gonna have to clean any of it. I'm finding that part of what makes good farming is efficient farming. And when you have the animals working with the land, it makes your job easier as the farmer. Uh-oh. We have the teenagers in Mama Goose's house. You guys are just causing trouble. As you can see, we successfully hatched one wild gosling here on the farm. And this mom is doing such a good job with this gosling. I'm not going to try to get too close because I don't want to disturb them. But they are quite the mother-baby combo. I like seeing the gosling grow up with the adult geese around it. It makes me wonder what it's going to be like. I hope it's a female, so maybe it gets better hatching instincts. One thing about this gosling, though, that I've noticed is it's about 2 days older than the big goslings we have in the brooder there, and you can clearly see that there's a massive size difference. I think the goslings in the brooder are getting just better nutrition and better access to kind of all the things that they need. So while this little gosling is going to be raised with good goose instincts and a bond to the bigger flock, I wonder if it's going to grow up as big as the other guys. I should also say, though, that breed makes a big difference too, and so it might just be a combination of the genetics for this gosling as well. Okay, Mom, I'm gonna leave you alone, okay? Release the Kraken! It won't be long now, and we will be adding to our duck flock. You see, a big part of why I kicked out the goslings is I had to prep the brooder for new ducklings that should be coming tomorrow. I'm very excited for them. Now, before I get into these numbers and whether or not we're projected to make money on our farm this year, I did want to stop and talk to you a little bit about our sponsor today, Skillshare. You see, lately I've been using Skillshare as like my go-to place for getting information, and particularly when I'm thinking about operating and running a business like an entrepreneur, Skillshare has some great courses on that topic.
For example, just the other night I took an e-commerce essentials course with Tracy Wallace, founder of Doris Sleep. It was great, and I learned a lot, and I got some great ideas for this future business venture I'm currently working on for the farm. Maybe I'll tell you about it in this video a little later on. And for those not familiar, Skillshare is this online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. You can explore new skills, develop existing interests, and get lost in creativity. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning that there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click on the link in the description of this video will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Go check it out. So thank you, Skillshare. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to be profitable this year, and the money you guys are contributing to the farm really helps balance the books for us. So now as I think about the profit for the farm this year, I think the best place to start is actually with our 2020 farm income. As you can see here, we made about $5,000 in total net income related to the farm. That was a little less than $200 in egg sales, $1,300 in meat sales, $1,200 in hatching eggs, $460 in gosling sales, $120 in duckling sales, and then roughly $1,700 mostly in tree sales. Now, the farm business plan for 2021 required me to hatch 150 goslings to really try to scale up our operation. My projections were that I was going to try to sell roughly 25 live goslings and then butcher about 110 of those other goslings as meat birds, and then hold back a bunch that would be used for future breeding stock and further expansion of my flock. But as many of you guys have been watching our videos know,
we've had a lot of hatching problems this year. We scaled up to a newer, bigger incubator, and it has not been performing. I've also been probably making some mistakes. You know, specifically, we've done 4 hatches this year, and when it comes down to it, we hatched 15 goslings in the first batch, 15 goslings in the second batch, 9 goslings in the third batch, and 9 goslings in the fourth batch. So that leaves us with a grand total of 48 goslings that hatched. And as you can see here, actually, our hatching rates were pretty poor, but with the last batch of goslings I hatched, it actually improved. The only problem was because we were towards the end of the season, I had fewer eggs to hatch. And so I had a 50% hatching rate, which was my goal. But really, when it comes down to it, I was far, far off from the mark that I projected back in February, when I was way too optimistic. Of those 48 goslings that hatched this year on our farm, we actually had 2 that passed away. You know, I think that is just sort of something that tends to happen. You know, both of those goslings that died very young. I think, you know, we had 1 gosling that died after the second day, and that was one of the goslings that I assisted with its hatch. We had another gosling, who you guys might recall is the littlest gosling, the one that never grew up, that almost lived for about 2 weeks, but it was so tiny and so fragile, there was no way it was making it. Rest in power, little ones. You lived the best life you could. But of the 46 that remained on the farm, we actually have already sold 23 of those goslings as live geese. I'll probably actually even sell a few more, and then we have 23 that are still here around on the farm. And so specifically, that's the 6 that are actually back inside the brooder, and then the 17 that you see wandering around the farm here. And I made almost $700 from the 23 we've already sold, so that's actually pretty good. And of the 23, some I will butcher at the end of the season and put in the freezer and sell to folks. No word yet on actually what the prices are gonna be, but stay tuned and I'll announce when I'll be selling them. So if you wanna buy a goose from us, let us know. Also, if folks wanna buy a live goose from us, send us an email, and we're still selling those as well. But just know that the older that they get, the price gets higher, because I've got more money essentially sunk into them. And as I'm thinking about this as a business, I basically have this sort of tipping point scale that I'm using to say, where is it gonna be net neutral to sell the bird alive versus sell the bird as a frozen bird? So that's business guy speak for essentially, it'll be cheaper than buying a frozen bird, but it still won't be cheaper than buying a baby bird. The one silver lining I will call out is I've made roughly $1,200 in egg sales from the geese. That was much higher than I anticipated, and from a profitability standpoint, I think that that's gonna help me towards the end of this year. Feed for all the birds. That bucket of feed right there, that probably cost about, I don't know, $8 or so. I mean, it's all the bird feed I'm gonna expend this day, and you know, the ducks and geese and chickens will get the rest of their meals from other parts of the farm, eating grass and bugs and all sorts of good stuff. But there is an operating cost that comes with the farm. I haven't exactly nailed down what my numbers are gonna look like for the end of the year, but as I do sort of the rough projection based on my February business case, I'm gonna be losing money when it comes to the goose operation this year. I think the good news is my costs for operating though were much lower. Because I hatched all the birds myself this year and didn't have to spend several $100s buying from a hatchery, that very much is gonna help my balance sheet, but at the end of the day, it's not where I wanted to be. You know, I think when you're like a small business person or an entrepreneur or a farmer who just has a dream about, you know, raising some animals and making some money, you can fall into the trap of having an overly optimistic business plan, and I am definitely guilty of that this year. Don't worry, weird chickens, I didn't forget about you. Rise and shine, weirdos. My weird chickens are doing good. Linda, who was sitting on a clutch of eggs, she has not successfully hatched any of them. Rosie, though, did sit on a clutch of eggs, and she's got those 3 little babies there. They're gonna be pretty adorable. As I've said in other videos, I'm very curious to see what they grow up to look like. You know, I'm finding that I'm more and more fascinated with genetics and raising animals the more and more I get into this, and I think focusing on the breeding part of this is actually going to be one of the key parts of where my farm business ultimately goes, particularly as I'm thinking about the poultry. As I'm thinking about the cattle though, I think that's going to end up being a somewhat different story. So good news is I've actually finished clearing out the barn and I've started to prep this area for the winter area for the cattle. I'll probably do a future video on all the prep stuff I'm doing to get ready to receive the cattle. And I will say that my struggle right now with my business plan and matching my execution to plan is something that's not lost on me as I'm getting ready to start this cattle and beef jerky endeavor. And to be honest with you, it's got me worried. It's a big risk, but I've also been very carefully saving money and setting it aside. So as I'm getting dollars from, say, YouTube videos or sponsors like Skillshare, I'm taking that money and using it to buy some of the infrastructure, as well as the actual cattle, as well as money to pay for things like hay for the first year, as well as even to think about things like processing. And so as I'm doing this next step with my farm business, I'm not doing it where I have a loan that I owe to the bank or I'm mortgaging my house or anything like that. It's actually based on capital that I already have in my pocket. I'm essentially being my own banker here. And so because of that, while I know I'm taking a big risk with adding these cattle to the farm, I also know that the stakes aren't nearly as high as they could be, or as they might be for other people. By the way, guys, after the feeding frenzy dies down, an eerie stillness and calm settles over the farm. I just don't want anybody to get the picture that I'm starving my birds for profitability. They have plenty of food. They're just very excited to experience that food when they first wake up in the morning. You know, late last year I did a video to break down how much money I actually made farming in 2020. I will leave a link for it up here and you can check that out. And also, in case you guys are wondering, the barn cats are doing good. They're still settling in their training period, and Molly here hasn't escaped once in the last couple of days, so kudos to us. And Ginny, you're just a little fireball, just like Ginny Weasley. Thanks for watching, guys.